Welcome, everyone. This is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about wellness, overall mentality, mindset, and then getting ourselves into empowerment and then ownership of our reality. Because when we are trying to make some changes in our life, we typically wait until the last moment, right? Maybe we're procrastinators. Maybe we're people who don't take action until it's the due date. Think of a bill. If you're someone who waits until you get the cutoff notice and you're like, oh, the water's going to get cut off. Let me pay the bill. Some people are like that. But then there's some people who like to pay before the due date. There's some people who just have everything on auto pay. But yet some people, they are living maybe above their means, creating stress for themselves. That's not necessarily healthy. But then we can have people who are just creating stress from themselves because they're not taking the proper actions in their life. What do we do about it, right? Well, we have to begin to understand what type of lifestyle we want for ourselves. And this is not the lifestyle that I talk about quite frequently on the podcast, where it's the lifestyle of how much home do you want, right? You want 5 bedrooms or you want 17 bedrooms? Do you want a 3-bath? Do you want a 4-car garage or 2-car garage, right? I mean, we can go down the list of the lifestyle that you want. Certain types of cars, certain types of pocketbooks or clothes. These right there create a lifestyle. But in order to enjoy that lifestyle, something has to be in place. You have to be well. Because if you were depressed, if you were unhealthy, if you had some type of ailment, you wouldn't care about how big your house was. You wouldn't care how fast your car was. Maybe, depending on what type of ailment you have. If it's like a, do or die type of thing, you have 6 months left to live, you might want a Ferrari and go real fast because you're already on the edge. So you want to live on the edge. But I'm talking about for the people who have years ahead of them, who have so much growth and prosperity that they can have and that they can attain. What do we do about it? We have to take action. And today we're going to be having on a wellness coach, a guest. She is going to be helping us understand a little bit about her work. We're going to be having a conversation about all of this and then how you can step into that empowerment that's going to help you make a change in your life and realize that you are the potential that you can have. But it takes your mindset to be there. It takes you to figure out a sustainable plan, and it takes you to be the owner of your life and of your future. Because no one's going to give it to you. You have to go earn it. You have to get it yourself. So let's get into that interview of my guest, Lauren Vestal. Welcome, Lauren Vestal, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you? Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm doing well. Today, we're going to have you on as a wellness coach. Wellness is going to be a gambit. I know wellness can be fitness, it could be nutrition, it could be an overall life satisfactory level, right? Are you being well? And sometimes people choose to be well at heart, but yet they don't live that lifestyle. So today we're going to be having a conversation about your work. In your own words, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help?
Sure, yeah. Again, Lauren Vestal. I work for Symmetry. We help busy professionals and high achievers take back control of their lives so they have more time, more energy, and less stress. And I also teach yoga and a little Pilates on the side too.
Hey, what type of yoga do you teach?
Vinyasa, power vinyasa primarily, but also I'm certified in Ashtanga, restorative, yin, aerial, sculpt. So pretty much you name it.
I did vinyasa for a little bit. I was more of a Bikram guy because I just like the challenge of suffering going into the hot room. And it was just a mental battle. And fitness and wellness is that mental battle. Many people don't want to feel bad, right? Because the moment we become uncomfortable, we stop, right? Think about the New Year's resolutions. We're already gone past that. How many people have started and they have stopped because they might have not had felt comfortable, or they realize maybe, you know what, this is taking so much of my time and I just don't have time because I don't have time for me. And time for them is sitting on the sofa, being on their phone, doing things that are not helpful for their wellness, for their health, benefiting them to get higher energy. How do you help people get out of that mindset and more into a wellness and fitness mindset?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said mindset, because one of the things that we talk about a lot, especially with clients in our group coaching, is stress isn't good or bad, right? And whether that's physical or mental stress, we need actually stress to grow and get stronger and more resilient. So if you're going into a challenge thinking, I hate this sucks, I don't want to be doing whatever it is, whether it's something that'll promote you in your career or just doing a hard weight session in the gym, or like you were saying, in a hot yoga class. I teach hot yoga too. So it's a mental battle, but getting through the other side of that is part of it. And how do you think about what's your mindset going into it? Are you negative and dejected and just like grinding through it just to get it done? Or are you attacking the challenge and really knowing that you will benefit from it in the long run, assuming that you also add the adequate rest, right? Because like we say a lot, stress plus rest equals growth. So there has to be that balance too of stress plus rest so that you can grow. You can't just like stress all the time.
Is there a time and place that stress can be a bad thing, though?
I think if you're not allowing yourself to rest and recover, whether that's mentally or physically, I know I was an athlete my entire life, played soccer through college and beyond, and I tore my quad my freshman year. And instead of resting, I just wrapped it up and kept going. And a couple of decades later, I've got a big divot in my quad where that stress I didn't let it recover and heal. So now I'm living still with the results of that. So I mean, that's a silly example, but yeah, stress does terrible things to our body and mindset also if we don't allow ourselves time to recover.
Powerful. Stress and mindset can do terrible things to the body. And I agree with that because you are just thinking about it, right? Like if you allow bad stress, right? And I know we talked about stress could be good or bad, but there are going to be stresses that you just don't want in your life. For example, if you're stressing about paying the bills, we understand it's a good stress in the sense it's almost like a double think, right? It's a good stress because you're like, I have to pay the bills, I have to make enough money. So you're going to show up just enough typically to pay the bills, make ends meet. You're going to keep a roof over your head, maybe get some food to eat, and now you have a place to live, right? You did just enough. And typically it's like that survival instinct kicking in. It's like, okay, that stress is going to help me take action. Yet today, we allow poor stress to ruin our life, right? The stress of social media. No one liked my post. Literally, like this stress, how does that benefit you? The stress of mindset of, oh, guess what? I don't have enough time to work out. I don't have enough time to do the things that are going to help me later on in life. People don't worry about things that are fixed right now or are working properly until they're not. So if your body is broken, that's when you start to pay attention. When your mind is broken, that's when you start to pay attention. How can we start to help people pay attention today?
Right. Yeah, no, that's such a great question. I think setting yourself up for success and let me go back. Like I said, stress in and of itself isn't good or bad. Inherently, yes, there are things that are worse types of stress, things that, a loss or, some devastating illness. Like obviously those are not good, stressful things, but more from a physiological standpoint, like you were talking about, how today we get stressed from things like social media, an email that you get from your boss, traffic, things like that. Well, evolutionarily, it used to be where we're running from a lion, and that's the issue now. There's the body doesn't know the difference between running from a lion and that stressful email. So it's about, how do you cultivate that mindset like we were talking about to have more resilience, to not get so stressed out when you get that email, not to have that physical reaction. And part of what we do is teach you how to pay attention to those signals that the body's telling you and learn to use the breath specifically as a tool to calm the body back down. So by building your threshold and being able to recognize what your body's telling you, just like you would strength train or anything else, you can start to get stronger in that sense. So these little things that, 3 weeks ago may have been sending you off the rails are no longer stressing you as much as they would have before.
What is the difference between resilience and stubbornness?
Well, stubbornness, I would think, is just unwillingness to move, right? Like, I'm not going to budge. Versus resilience, I think of as more empowering and more growth versus a rigid mindset and more fixed mindset versus growth mindset, I think is what it comes down to in part.
Yes, stubborn is like hard to move. Think of like stubborn belly fat, like when they say
Yeah.
that the idea of stubborn belly fat or whatever type of fat, where it's just harder to move. In our world today, people have that heart of resilience. They want good. Most people, they want personal growth. They want a better
Right.
life. Yet they are stubborn. They're just hard to move. They're hard to coerce to say, hey, like this is the results you could be having. This is the life that you're living. You're making all these excuses, whether it be, I don't have the energy, I don't have the time. And sometimes when they like think of the gym, they think of it as a pyramid scheme because they say, oh, in order for me to go to the gym, I have to have energy and I have to have time, and I don't have either. So it's one of those things where it's just like you have to give something. And sometimes it's going to be getting rid of that stubbornness. We have to let go of our old habits, of our old lifestyle that we have been, maybe our comfort zone, and then start to venture off. However, we all know that the moment you start to leave your comfort zone, oh man, you are going on an internal battle. And I want to speak with you on that internal battle. We can even phrase it in the sense of yoga, vinyasa, vinyasa's power yoga, where they're doing more of a more strenuous type of yoga. You do some stretching, but it's more of like, all right, I'm gonna put a lot of weight on my body. So now it's challenging the mind also. How do you help people push through that and not give up?
Well, I think one of our principles at the studio where I teach is empowerment of the students. So really giving them agency. And I would say in our coaching too, right? Like you have the power to make this change, or you have the power or a choice to stay exactly where as you are. But your life is not going to change if you don't change anything. So, especially in our one-on-one coaching and our group coaching, it's like, okay, you don't have to change everything all at once either, right? It doesn't have to be this huge overhaul of your life. But if you start with small changes, and, we use the example, if you want to run a marathon and you don't currently run, it's unrealistic that you are going to go run 5 miles every day this week. But what's the smallest version of starting that habit? Maybe it's just putting your shoes by the door, and you put your shoes by the door all week this week. And then the next week you put your shoes on and you walk out the door, and maybe you walk half a block or jog half a block. And if you want to keep going, you keep going. But how do you set yourself up for success? How do you start to build these little habits so that they are sustainable and you can promote and keep this change going to give you the life that you want? So whether it's getting into the gym, and I think, we all have the excuse of, I don't have enough time and I don't have the energy. Like, I know you've got a family, I've got a little one, like full working a lot. I could very easily say, like, I don't have time, but we're going to prioritize the things that we want to make time for. And if you want to make time to go to the gym, you'll figure out how to make time to go to the gym. It's easier for some than others, and depending on the season of life, for sure. But at the end of the day, if you want to make change, every single person is capable of starting to make change.
Do you have a son or a daughter?
I have a son.
You have a son? Okay. I have a son also. And it was so funny the other day. He's only one, like 1.5, 2, he's on that cusp of being 2.
Mine's almost 2 also.
Awesome. So we're going to set up play dates and stuff.
Yeah.
We were running in the house. And just so funny because he was like laughing and like, oh my God, he's chasing me and things like that. And I remember talking to my father because my father, he was an alcoholic for many, many years, most of his life. And even though we told him, hey, stop, this is not good for you. Oh, yeah, I'm going to stop. But it was that habit that he had created for himself. Maybe it was a coping mechanism, whatever it was. He didn't stop until he got that big T trauma, right? He had a stroke. Luckily, he was able to recover. Everything was good. And I remember I was speaking with him and I said, you are still young, because he had us at when he was like 20 and I'm 35. So you can see that he's not that old,
Yeah.
where he has to make a choice because now he has a grandson and he gets to make the choice. Does he want to be able to run with them and see them graduate and to see them grow up? Or does he just want to be a feeble old man and choose to deteriorate every single day. Luckily for him and for our family, he said, okay, I'm going to start to make some changes. And so he figured out what was sustainable for him. He figured out what was his limit. And some days was challenging for him because, especially when you get older, you start to look back at your youth. You look back at what you could have done. And you say, man, when I was young, I could do this. I can run. I can chase after the kids. I can do all of this. But yet now it has become difficult. And that becomes a detraction for them to push forward because they feel like they have lost so much. It's almost like if you're running in a marathon or a race, and maybe you're not a marathon runner, but I just want you to visualize this. And you're running, and let's say you're tied right now for first place, but you start to get tired. Your leg starts to cramp up. The first or the person that was next to you is now in first, and you see yourself starting to slow down. Your mind is telling you, stop, stop, stop. You're already lost. This is where people are. They see that victory right there in front of them, but yet they can't get that last drop out of them. They can't get that last squeeze out of them. They have let their mind control them and set the limits. And I do a lot of stuff on limits, here, coaching a session in Reven concepts. It's a big belief of mine that we can challenge the limits that we give ourselves, that society gives us. What's your take on getting over limits, getting through limits? I know we talked a little bit about empowerment, but I don't know if you have a philosophy at Symmetry or if you have one that you created for yourself.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say I think one, they're different for everyone. Generally speaking, what I've seen both with clients and, in a yoga studio classroom setting is that people are way more capable than they realize they are. And I think having somebody also in your corner, whether it's a coach or somebody for accountability or just a community of support, and not even necessarily having them next to you, right, when you're running that marathon, but just having that in the back of your mind, like, one, I'm not in this alone. I don't have to do it alone. Like, yes, you are physically running the marathon on your own, but if you have that community and support, that can really help to keep you going. I know a couple people that I know have done, full Ironmans, and one of the women had asked for, letters when she got to, I forget which mile, I think in the bike maybe, or at some checkpoint, she had these letters that she was going to read from her community to like keep her going. So I think, one, the human body is capable of miraculous things, right? And also, but I think again, it comes back to mindset. Like, are you willing to kind of push through to achieve the goal that you want to achieve? Or are you going to give up and stay in this complacent place where you're right there, but you're not willing to push yourself over the line? And I think a lot of the times people get stuck and stay in this, you were talking about the comfort zone earlier. Even if the comfort zone sucks and they know like this isn't where I want to be, the fear of the unknown, even if it could be better, often keeps people in that comfort zone. So giving people a little push or encouragement, to say like, hey, yeah, it's going to be a leap, but you can do this. You are capable. Like, this is going to be better for you in the long term. Look at all the things that you will gain in your life, whether that's health, time with family, better longevity to spend with your grandson. These things are big life changes. And, you were saying, I'm already X years old. Well, it doesn't matter. You can start at any time. You can change your life at any time. It's not too late ever, I would say.
One time I had not wanted to go to Bikram class, and I always tell myself if I don't want to do something, I need to do it.
Yeah.
And so I go to Bikram class, and I'm literally fighting a battle with myself. Like, it's not even about the room anymore. I'm fighting with myself. I was beginning to get frustrated that day because I just wasn't doing the things that I knew I could do, the things I used to do just 2 days before. And I know it's possible, but yet my mind was just getting in the way. It was just stopping me. And then so anger started to seep in at the time. And I was like, frustration, anger. It's just like, why can't I do this? And it was because I was giving myself that mentality of like, I didn't want to do this. Yes, I'm here. Now I have a battle to fight. And that is right there that is going to help someone build resilience. Because if you just said, you know what, I don't feel like going, and you don't go, you have failed to create an opportunity to build resilience. How do you help your clients build resilience?
Yeah, I think, well, what you just said too, sometimes it's not about like, whether it's in a yoga class, like hitting the pose or getting your best time in a race, whatever it is, but rather, especially on the days when you're like, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to do the thing and doing it anyway. Like, one, that's what builds willpower. So it'll keep compounding on itself, right? When you don't want to do the thing and you go do the hard thing anyway. So you're building willpower, certainly resilience. And honestly, sometimes those are the best classes too. Like you come out and you're like, oh God, I'm so glad I went. But on the other hand, if you're like, this sucks the whole time, like giving yourself the grace to be like, yeah, it was not my best class. And I still went. I still got out the door, whatever it was. You still did the thing. And like, okay, I have another opportunity to attack it tomorrow. So I think grace, giving yourself grace, which is really hard. Like I say that kind of cavalierly, but it's really hard for a lot of people to, it's easy to give grace to others often, but it's a lot harder to give it to yourself. And that's one thing we work with clients a lot on is like, okay, who's putting these rules on you? Like you were saying earlier, is it society? Is it yourself? And like, if it's you that has set these parameters, like you're also capable of changing them. So, maybe it's not taking every option and doing the best class you've ever done and holding a handstand for 5 minutes. Maybe it's like, I got in the door and I like moved my body a little bit and I breathed and I was present for an hour. That's a win today.
The aspect of giving grace is, as you said, very difficult. Definitely, it's probably more difficult for men. I'm not going to say it is because it could be difficult for women too. But I know for me, especially in that moment, I was just like, okay, well, like that was not good. Like, why wasn't it good? Like, I did a whole self reflection after the class, and I remember speaking to the teacher, wonderful instructor. She was just like, some days we just don't have it, but then when we do have it, we have to show up. That just led me to look at how sometimes we can. Let's use the analogy of driving on the highway. Sometimes you're in the third lane. If you're in the third lane, you have to go 80 plus miles an hour. Everyone knows this, okay? You don't go 60, you don't go the speed limit. You have to go 10 to 15 over, right? If you are someone in the, third lane and you go 15 miles over, you go to speed limit, you go 15 miles over, you go to speed limit, you're just stopping and going, stopping and going. That actually does something to the mind where you train your mind to say, you know what? I'm going to go really hard and then I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go really hard and I'm going to take it easy. But that puts more strain on the body because we are not building a body that's going to be used to that intolerance. So we have to tolerate the pain long term, and then it eventually doesn't have an effect on us. I was watching a video the other day, and it's a crazy video. It's part of the story or part of our conversation, but it's a little crazy. A guy was purposely getting bit by venomous snakes. And what happened was his body developed the anti-venom naturally over the years. So he can get bit by a cobra, he can get by some of the most venomous snakes in the world, and he's fine. But it took, a while for him to do that. If he got bit once and said, you know what, I'm not going to get bit again. And then a year later, he gets bit, he's going to be in the same situation. But the fact that he just let the body adapt, and the body does adapt. If you give yourself a challenge or if you give yourself no way out, think of it as burning the boats, the saying, burn the ships. And you only have one alternative. The alternative is to win, it is to succeed, is to get through, whatever you want to, use. But the one way out in wellness, we have that same concept where we can be healthy or we can choose to be unhealthy. All right. There's not necessarily in between because the in between is just a unknowingness if we're going to get a doctor's note the next time we go to the doctor or if we are going to be fine. Sometimes we can be the healthiest people, eating organic, doing all the right things, going to the gym, and then there still can be something in our genetics and our DNA that takes over. Okay, we have those situations, but that should not be grounds for you to say, well, I'm not going to do fitness or I'm not going to be well. We have to look at it as if we want wellness in our life, we look at the peak prosperity, the peak good we can have, more so than, like, what's the point? It's hard. There's so much negativity and there's so much baggage that comes with being in shape, being mentally fit, that many people today, they don't have it. Look at our younger generation. Critical thinking, that's out the window. They're eating Tide Pods. All right. They're following trends, doing TikTok dances in the middle of the grocery store. This makes no sense. Yet, for them, it does. So they have a new mindset. But yet, this mindset is not about working hard. The values are missing. All right. They don't have that anymore. How can we start to instill the things that are going to help people look at the good rather than the mediocre or the bad?
Well, I think, kind of going back to our conversation about having kids and kind of tying in giving grace, but I remember when my son was small and I was, probably cleared to work out postpartum, but hormones still all over the place, like crying on the phone with my friend, like, I really need to go to the gym, but like I feel bad. There's like, the whole mom guilt thing. And I just remember so clearly her saying to me, look, you're going to be a better mom if you go work out, if you take the time for you and like I've been, that was 2 years ago almost, but thinking about that more and more. And also like the example that we're setting for our kids. And okay, if you as a parent are not prioritizing your health and your wellness and well-being, what are you modeling for your kids? If you're not kind of setting the example of working hard, but also paying attention to your body, right? Resting when you need to rest so that you can keep going. If you're not doing these things, then of course they're not going to follow suit. I mean, they might not follow suit anyway, but, modeling as parents for sure, this is important. We prioritize health, and that means getting to the gym, getting to class, whatever it is, going for a walk outside, getting enough sleep, eating right, hydrating, all of these things. But obviously that's easier to control within your own home. But I think just leading by example overall, I mean, there's probably not a lot I can do for the kids doing TikTok dances in the grocery store aisle. They're probably just going to roll their eyes at me. But, I think it's just encouraging people to take care of themselves is important, setting the tone.
Yeah, parents play a critical component. It's essential to have a parent there to help raise the kid. If the kid seems to be kind of doing their own thing, they're paying attention still. Okay. Like if you kick something, the kids go like, oh, that's what I gotta do. If you lay down on the sofa on your phone, the kid is like, give me the phone. I want to do that too, right? They learn by example, right? They are mimickers because they're learning, they're trying to adapt, they're trying to be part of the community or the herd, whatever you want to say, or the tribe. It's interesting because I was reading an article. I talked about this on a past episode of the podcast where the fitness level is not so much dependent on, or the family fitness level is not so much dependent on the father, the man, the guy in the relationship. It's the mother. So if she is mentally fit, if she is physically fit, the kid sees that more readily than the dad. Eventually, the kid will see the dad if the dad is fit, but that's more of like, 8 to like teenagers years. But for the first, 7 to 8 years, mom's in charge of that. And so she sets the tone for the fitness level of, or the wellness level of the child because they learn how to eat. They learn how to stay active. But yet, many of our youth today, they have been the least active in probably ever in the whole entire history of the human race because they can just literally stay inside. COVID didn't help because it just exasperated the problem, saying just stay inside for 3 to 6 months or whatever it was. And so they have learned to stay still. I live right next to a park. I go there probably like 2 or 3 times a week. But yet, when I'm out there and I know there's kids in the neighborhood, I don't see kids riding the bikes. I don't like they're gone. right? I see them go to school because we have a middle school just probably like 4 or 5 blocks down the road. And I'll see the kids, come and go into school. But after that, they're gone, right? I might see a couple, sitting in the park. I see a couple playing basketball, but that's gone. The days of riding the bikes until the street lights came on, getting bit by mosquitoes, long past. But yet a parent can instill that into their children. Society is not going to necessarily raise their children for you, but yet parents or, just households, they have to have both parents working to make ends meet sometimes. So it can be difficult because who's going to raise the kid? Maybe grandma and grandpa are in the picture. They're retired, and that's going to be a great help. But then sometimes it's going to be a daycare. Sometimes it's going to be an iPad. And those things might not necessarily be the best fit for them. This is not so much of a conversation of looking at your kids and what we need to do with kids, but so much of the parents looking at what they need to do in order to show up. Because if you as a parent cannot be that example, as you said, or lead, then the problems that we have are just going to continue generation to generation. We need to stop the cycle. And one of the best ways a person can begin to stop the cycle is to take ownership in who we are and in what we can become. And that mentality right there is what I want to be our last question, taking ownership, right? What does that mean for you?
That's a big one. I think it on a lot of different levels, right? Like if you're taking ownership of your, well, I mean, put it into context, wellness, right? Your mental health, your physical health and wellness. And I think those things are intrinsically tied together, but not saying, oh, well, that meeting ran over, so now I can't make it to class. It's like, okay, no, yeah, you missed class, but go for a walk or, do some squats in your living room, push ups, sit ups, whatever it is. Like if you need to get your work in, like, and when I say work out, get your workout in. It doesn't have to look a certain way all the time. It's going to probably look different, possibly day to day. I mean, again, depending on your season of life in particular, but like not making excuses, not kind of having a victim mentality, but rather like, nope, okay, it's not I should do this or I shouldn't do that. It's I'm making a choice to do X, Y, and Z because it's always a choice, right? At the end of the day, we can say I should go to the grocery store. I shouldn't sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 5 hours at a time. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm choosing to go to the grocery store because I need to, get food to cook dinner for my family. I am choosing to sit on the couch and watch Netflix for 5 hours because I'm sick and, need to rest. Or I'm choosing to not do that because it's a beautiful day outside and I want to take a walk. But taking ownership in the sense of taking accountability and having some agency to understand that like your life is in your hands and you can make a choice to do with it what you want.
I loved our conversation today. Our conversation was one of wellness, was one of a real adult living a real life. We are not perfect by any means, but yet we grow because we understand we're not perfect. And people, they have to understand that if they're in a situation where they are going to commit to that higher self, they have to do it in a way that is going to be sustainable, as we talked about, that's going to be reasonable for them. And the best way to do that is going to get someone who's going to hold them accountable, getting a coach, getting a mentor, a trainer, or a wellness coach like yourself, Lauren. And that right there is going to help that person stay on the path rather than just kind of dip their toes in and say, it's a little bit too hot, a little bit too cold. I don't think I want to do it today, right? This is more of sustainability, figuring out what you can do long term. And as we begin to wrap up, I would love to get some final words from you and for you to tell the audience where they can find you.
Well, again, thank you for having me. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed being on your show. I guess you guys can find me. You can email me at Lauren, Lauren at symmetry.live. But I guess, Michael, do you have any kind of key takeaways from our conversation? Anything that stood out to you in particular?
Well, I will be talking about it in the intro and the outro, so I'm
Okay.
not going to talk about it now.
That's fair. Awesome.
Let's do this. All right. As we go, we have 1 minute. All right. And I really want you to dive in here. Okay. If you can tell your younger self one minute of stuff, what would it be?
Oh man.
Time is gone.
Yeah. I think that you can make a change. You are capable of making a choice to change your life. And that I don't think I really realized that even 7 years ago. If somebody told me, like, oh, you have a choice, you can change how you're doing things. You have a choice to respond instead of react. You don't have to do it the way you've done it your entire life just because that's how you've done it your entire life. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, had never even occurred to me. So I think that for sure would be it. You have a choice, and you can choose how you respond.
Perfect. Now that is empowering. Thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on, spending some time and talking about your work. All right, everyone. I'd like to thank you so much for watching that interview with my guest, Lauren Vestal. What went on in that episode is we had a journey of wellness. We talked about different things. We talked about family. We used I used a lot of analogies where sometimes it creates and it breaks up the podcast, I find, and it makes it a bit more enjoyable. Because if I just talked about wellness sometimes, and I always like to make all of these episodes a little bit different, because guess what? We already had wellness coaches on. We already had health professionals. We have executive coaches. We have high performance coaches come on. But every coach is different. Every coach I speak with has a different personality. They have a different mindset. They have a different mentality for their clients. And this is the growth that we need as people. Not changing the school system. That's not going to happen. If it does happen, it's not going to be perfect unless there's a whole bunch of parents and a whole bunch of coaches and a whole bunch of teachers. Take away the politicians and you bring them in the room and you figure out what we need for our children. That might not happen. And it's a very low probability that that will happen. We need to do what is going to be the most effective way that we have currently. Why wait for a system to be fixed when we can just fix the system? So the system is broken, but yet we can create a better system. And I say the system is broken because if wellness wasn't an issue, if stress wasn't an issue, it would be because we were instilling that education into the children. And as they grew up, they learned and they knew this is life. I have to go stay physically fit or mentally fit. I have to challenge myself. I have to give myself purpose. I have to figure out what's sustainable for me. I set and create my own limits. What would they be? That is not spoken about in school. And if it is, it's just a personal wellness class that the kids are playing around in. Maybe they learn CPR. Maybe they do, a couple of things about fruits and veggies, but that's it. And yet they still will go to McDonald's after school, get a dollar menu cheeseburger or whatever they have now. I don't even know. And a McFlurry and a fry and maybe an apple pie. And guess what? That's their dinner. That's not healthy. How can you be well when you're putting junk into your body? How can you be well when you are on your phone all day and you're watching all of these movies for hours at end, but you are not giving yourself the mindset and the ability to indulge in personal development and self-help and improvement? This is the reality. They're not taught that. We are not taught to seek a higher purpose when we reach a certain age. Because when you're, 25, you should be working, right? You're already done with college, typically. Go to work, right? Just go to work. When you're 65, you can retire. We're not telling you what's happening in between. We're not telling you how you're going to feel. And then when you get old, we just say, what? Is old age? Yeah. You can go ahead and you can challenge yourself and set the new limits. As I said, my father, he had the stroke and I have my kid. And so we frequently go up to Connecticut, is where I'm from and where my parents live right now. I live in Texas. We went up there and I remember one of the things I wanted for Christmas, I said, I just want you to do some push-ups for me. That was it, just so I can see him being healthy, see him, challenging himself. And, he can maybe do, 10, 12, whatever push-ups. But then, 6 months later, and this is a man who has recovered from a stroke. He was doing 40, 44 push-ups or something. He banged them out quick. He was like, boom, 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 done. And it was so interesting because I saw another man who was younger, who was in shape, no stroke or nothing, right? Good on paper, right? Like everything should be good. He couldn't even do 4 push-ups. And I remember, like as a young man, he would do push-ups with us and we would say, oh, we want to do push-ups too. And when you're a kid, the way you do push-ups is kind of funny. But, when I was a swim instructor, I would make the kids do push-ups on the side of the pool. So they'll swim from side to side. They'll get out. They'll do some push-ups. The parents loved it because they would see their kid kind of doing the push-ups, and it was hilarious. And so it created a moment where we can understand that we begin. It might not be perfect, right? Those push-ups that the kids were doing, they were not perfect. They're funny. But then now we're an adult and we have to see, can we do those push-ups, right? Now it's serious, right? We have to get serious about our wellness. And it's not even always about, hey, listen, I want you to go to the gym every single day. I want you to take up boxing. I want you to do martial arts. I want you to be on this nutrition plan. It is not that. I want you to do yoga. I want you to do meditation. I want you to do all of this. It is not that. At some point, you have to sit down with yourself. Ideally, you will want to sit down with a coach, and you're going to want to ask yourself this question, or be asked this question. What do you want for your life? What do you want to be able to do when you're 65? What do you want to be able to do when you're 80? What do you want to do when you retire? What do you want to do in your life? Most people don't even know what they want to do past today. They're like, what do I want to eat? And they spend all day trying to figure out what they want to eat. Oh, they go on Netflix. Oh, what do I want to watch? They spend hours trying to figure out what they want to watch. People cannot take ownership. People cannot say, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to get. We have to begin to become more decisive in how we act. We have to be deliberate in how we live. We have the potential to change our circumstance. We have the potential to change our trajectory of our health, of our feeling of wellness, whether that be getting rid of stress, finding more energy, more time in our day. This right here is going to create longevity. Everyone's afraid to die, or maybe not everyone. I'm not afraid to die. They say that the number one fear is public speaking, and the next is going to be death. Most people ignore death. Yet when they're on their deathbed, they're afraid of it. Why wait for that moment to say, I want to live still? Today is an opportunity for you to get to choose life. You get to choose to win. You get to choose to become empowered. You get to choose to become resilient. You get to choose your mindset. A mindset free from limits, or when you fight those limits and you face those limits, you overcome them. We grow as people. We learn. And then from there, our life begins to acclimate to its true self. Everyone wants goodness. Everyone wants to be happy. They want to be loved. And are you the embodiment to what you see for yourself and for what the world should see? Maybe. But we all have some more in the tank. And I have found, if you get a coach, if you get a trainer, if you get someone who's going to help you along the way, you're going to find yourself so much more readily available to take action, to make change in your life, and then to begin to grow into the person that is not only well in the mind, well in fitness, but learns to embody that and to create the example and to lead by example, as Lauren was saying, for everyone else to follow. Because if we can be the leaders and not so much of the followers and just doing what's the latest trend and doing what everyone else is doing and going down the snack aisle and getting our Doritos and our macaroni and cheese, yeah, sure, it tastes good, but the effect it has on the body and the effect it has on the mind is not worth it. You have to be able to realize what your life is worth. Some people don't value themselves enough. Let's begin to be well once more. Let's begin to challenge the status quo. Let's begin to evolve into a higher self, whether that be awareness, whether that be wellness, whether that be mindset. We make the choice. You get to make the choice. And I encourage everyone, check out the links in the description box below. Lauren's going to be a great asset in your corner. Of course, you can always reach out to us here at Reven Concepts. We'll be more than happy to be those biggest cheerleaders in your life to help you along the way in your journey for success, fulfillment, and everything in between. As always, I'll see you on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.